Admission rules for beauty salons. Each guest has his own exclusive VIP lounge. It is absolutely safe. 2. Please on time for beauty care, and with technicians, such as accidentally angered technicians, please close your eyes for 10 seconds. No matter what you hear at night, please don't go out to check. 4. Don't worry about other guests who behave strangely. Dr. Sun will take care of them. The secretary is your private secretary, responsible for your schedule. If you have any questions, please consult the secretary. My friend recommended me to a beauty salon called Water Beauty. It is said that it only takes 1 month to have an angel face and a devil body. However, the biggest difference is that the beauty salon is closed, that is, this month, customers need to stay in the hole. But as a woman who loves beauty, nothing can stop me from becoming beautiful, so I signed up actively. After paying the deposit, my private secretary took me to the VIP room. Inside clean and tidy, in addition to the bed, sofa, but also equipped with a water fountain, as well as a separate toilet. Anyway, I'm satisfied. Please rest, wait until noon, I will come to call you dinner. Small secretary bowed and turned out, but also did not forget to bring me the door. I sit on the bed, soft, very comfortable. Suddenly see the bedside table put a pamphlet. The cover is written in a few big words, admission rules. I turn it on. It read, "Welcome to Water Beauty Salon. For your better experience, please obey the following rules. Each guest has his own exclusive VIP lounge. It is absolutely safe. 2. Please on time for beauty care, and with technicians, such as accidentally angered technicians, please close your eyes for 10 seconds. No matter what you hear at night, please don't go out to check. 4. Don't worry about other guests who behave strangely. Dr. Sun will take care of them. The secretary is your private secretary, responsible for your schedule. If you have any questions, please consult the secretary." I thought it was strange. I had never seen such an obscure rule before. But without thinking about it, I lay down on the bed and fell asleep quickly. I don't know how long I slept. I was awakened by the sound of a doorbell. I opened the door and saw the secretary standing outside. "It's time for lunch," she said respectfully. "Please come with me." Then I followed her to the canteen. There were about a dozen guests in the canteen, all of whom were eating. I took my meal and sat down to greet the nearest girl in a friendly way. But she didn't look up at me as if she hadn't heard. I tried to accent the voice again. She's still poker face. This embarrassed me, but I looked around and saw that no one was paying attention to me. Everyone in the restaurant only silently bow to eat. They use a spoon to dig into the food mouth, as if it were a rare delicacy. And their movements were uniform, like they had been disciplined. The entire dining room was eerily quiet, except for the sound of spoons hitting plates. Don't people like to communicate with others nowadays? I wonder. Today's lunch is lean mashed meat. The taste is obviously mediocre. After the frustrating meal, I started my first project, facials. I was lying on the beauty bed, and after a while, the technician came with a cart. I looked up at the technician. Her skin is very good, no blemishes, is a bit too white, cannot see a trace of blood. And her face was expressionless. The whole person exudes a cold breath. I swallowed and closed my eyes. The technician put a layer of goo on my face. Her hands smeared it on my face. Her fingertips were cold. She wiped my face, and after a while, I thought I smelled a bad smell. At first I thought it was an illusion, but gradually the smell grew stronger, like the stench of dead animals, making me want to vomit. And I noticed the smell was coming from my face. I couldn't help but open my eyes. The results, and technician eyes opposite. She is above my head, straight staring at me, expressionless, in the dim light of the room, seems very creepy. Ah. I sat up, startled. "The project isn't finished. Please lie down and continue," she ordered, her voice cold and stiff as she saw me rise. "You wash it off. It's too smelly. I can't stand it." I wiped my face with my hand, and found that my hands were covered with black unidentified mucus, a bit like human snot. "It's disgusting." She looked at me as if she understood what I was saying, and after a few seconds her face suddenly became menacing, with 0 visible veins crawling across her forehead and wriggling under her skin like worms. At the same time her eyebrows were twisted into a strange shape. I was so shocked by her sudden appearance that I sat on the bed and dared not move. She opened her mouth and repeated, "The project isn't finished. Please lie down and continue." Looking at the vein that almost burst out of her skin, I suddenly thought of the second
Nazim's
admission
discomfort
rule.
tone fell
If
into
you
facial.
accidentally upset the technician,
Afternoon secretary
please
took him to
close
the
your eyes
canteen
and
on the
count to
way.
10 seconds.
I couldn't help afternoon's
I
inside to her.
immediately closed my
Small
eyes and lay
secretary
down.
after listening.
10 seconds later, I opened my eyes again and found the technician had returned to her normal appearance. She reached out her hand and continued to rub it on my face. I fought off nausea and discomfort to end the lengthy facial. Afternoon secretary took me to the canteen on the way. I couldn't help the afternoon thing said to her. Small secretary after listening to a smile, "This is our beauty salon features. Although you may have some discomfort, but the effect is very good, please be sure to insist." In the evening, when I was lying in bed, I had a strange dream. I dreamt that I was fighting with a man in the sky. After hundreds of rounds, my physical strength was gradually exhausted. The man seized the opportunity to give me a big blow. I fell out of the sky in an instant, my body falling at a great speed. And below me is a huge crater, inside the lava is bubbling. Ah! I was startled awake. I wiped the cold sweat from my face and turned to find the sun shining in through the window. It was already dawn. Then the room doorbell rang, ding dong ding dong. I got up and opened the door. It was the secretary. She smiled. "Good morning. I'll take you to dinner." On the way to the restaurant with her, there was a flurry of footsteps behind me, and I was about to turn around when I hit my shoulder hard. A woman with disheveled hair, skinny and almost skinny, stumbled forward. Running and screaming, "You're all monsters. I'm getting out of here. Let me out. Let me out." She ran all the way to the front desk, then stumbled and fell, lying on the floor without a sound. I felt like running over to care for her. But by small secretarial outstretched hand blocked, she kept smiling, "Please follow me to eat." Then turn over palm, blocked hand into please action. That's when I remembered the 4th rule of admission: don't worry about other weird acting patients. Dr. Sun will take care of them. Dr. Sun? I was just wondering who Dr. Sun was when a man wearing a mask appeared in the corridor at some point, accompanied by 2 assistants. They walked quickly to the unconscious woman, who was lifted onto a stretcher by 2 assistants and then walked quickly away. Soon the corridor was quiet again, as if nothing had happened. And the presence of the receptionist, cleaning ants, and passing technicians, from beginning to end they do not have any reaction, not even look up, as if already accustomed to the appearance. What's the matter? Is the crazy lady a guest here? I have a strong uneasiness in my heart. Maybe I'll get out of here early. This beauty salon is too weird. I don't want no fucking beauty treatment. Breakfast is lean meat mud. I hurried to eat, ran to ask secretary, "I think this is not suitable for me. I want to go. The deposit can be refunded?" The secretary smiled. "No, and your beauty treatment starts in 5 minutes. Admission rules Article 2, please on time for beauty care, and cooperate with technicians." So I was forced to start my second project, back massage. With the last lesson, I told myself in my mind, no matter what I will cooperate with the completion of this care, do not anger the technician. I took off my shirt and lay face down on the bed. This technician and the last that looks almost the same, are a cold face. I was lying there with my head in a mess, but I couldn't help but look up and see the reflection of the tiles on the opposite wall. The sight almost scared my soul away. I saw the technician hands holding a knife. Knife is facing down my back. She will raise the knife high, the next second will pierce my back. I was too late to react, the sharp knife schwa to fall down. It's over. I'm gonna die. I closed my eyes in despair. But there was no pain to be expected, no sound of a knife sticking into flesh. Instead, I felt a massage hammer fall on my back and hit my acupressure points. My nervous tension slowly relaxed down, unconsciously lying in bed drowsy sleep. When I opened my eyes again, the technician was gone. I sat up, hot and sweaty on my back. So I put my hand on it, and it was scarlet blood. I screamed and ran out of the massage parlor just in time to bump into my secretary. As if I had met a savior, I hurriedly pulled her arm and called for help. But when I stretched out my hand, I swallowed the words from my mouth. Because I see no blood on my hands, just sticky sweat. What's the matter? Am I seeing things? My heart was thumping away. I made up my mind, I must go today, no matter what. I ran to the front desk. I want to discharge early, you give me discharge procedures. But the receptionist just stared at me coldly. After a few minutes, she said slowly, you need to ask the dean for permission to leave the hospital early. She reached out and pointed in a direction. I follow her finger. Down the hall is an office with the words, Dean's office. Is it that complicated? In that case, I go on my own, what I do not want the deposit. So I pretended to visit and moved silently toward the beauty salon's door. But when I arrived, I was horrified to find that the beauty salon door was missing, and it had become a wall. It was covered with cobwebs, as if it hadn't been cleaned in years. I was dashing around, trying to find somewhere to go, but I couldn't find anything. What's going on? Do you really have to go to the dean? I ran over at once. The door is closed. I just put my hand on the doorknob. But the next second, a huge electric current from the palm of my hand conduction to my body, pain in my eyes a black, I lost consciousness. I woke up the next day. Recalling yesterday's incident, I went to the front desk in a huff. Why won't I open the door to the dean's office? Is the dean in his office or not? The receptionist thought for a moment, then cocked her head. Of course the dean is in the office. How am I supposed to get in? I'm running out of patience. I don't want to be shocked again. Use the key. Where are the keys? Where are the keys? This time the receptionist reacted quickly. She smiled. The keys are in the courtyard. In the afternoon, my secretary didn't arrange any nursing program for me. She told me that I could move around freely. It's a good time for me to find the key. As long as the front desk doesn't lie to me, I'll find it. First came the infirmary. It's strange to never understand why beauty salons have infirmaries. The infirmary was simply furnished, with a set of tables and a shelf for bottles and jars. The bottles and jars look so strange that you can't tell what kind of material they are made of. While Dr. Sun was away, I rummaged in his drawer for some information about the guests. I picked it up and took a look. It was all young women, and the diagnosis was, without exception, mental illness. Before I could think about it, I closed the drawer and went to the shelf again.
Nazin's discomfort
I
tone
crept
fell
to
in the
open a
facial.
purple jar.
Afternoon
As soon
secretary
as
took
it
him
was
to
opened,
canteen
a
on the
fishy
way.
smell came
I
over
couldn't
me.
help afternoon's anxiety
It's
to
the
her.
same smell I
Small
smelled during my
secretary
facial
activist in.
yesterday. Before I could squeeze my nose, an unidentified creature jumped out of it and hit me in the face. With a sudden start, I scratched at my face. It was a toad. It stretched out its tongue to lick my palm. I shook with fear and classical conditioning it to the ground. The result was a black and green cloud of smoke the moment it touched the floor. I blinked and it was gone. I opened a few more in quick succession, and it turned out to be either toads or snails, spiders, and the like. I opened all the jars on the shelf, but found nothing. Then behind came the sound of hurried feet. It should be Dr. Sun back. I quickly put the jar away and turned away from the infirmary. Outside the infirmary, I noticed another room. The door of this room is very small and the same color as the wall. It is easy to ignore if you are not careful. On the door there were two crooked words, warehouse. I have a hunch there must be something inside. Maybe there is something I want. I tried turning the doorknob. It's open? I poked my head inside. It was pitch black, so I touched the switch and turned on the light. On the left side of the room is a tank without a lid. It was filled with red liquid, and I don't know what it was, but in the absence of wind, the liquid was swirling and flowing, and it was giving off this weird light, and it looked incredible. On the right are rows of shelves with containers placed on them. Will there be any in these containers? I pulled myself together and carefully opened the container closest to me. I leaned back to avoid another toad jumping out. But it didn't. So I put my head back in. The sight immediately sent shivers down my spine. I saw inside the container lies a pair of human eyes. Even more terrible is that the eyes are still in the wheels to move back and forth. It is really terrible. I was scared back several steps, but accidentally knocked down the side of the shelf. In an instant, containers large and small fell down one after another, clattering to the ground. Inside things rolled out, some people's eyes, ears, nose and tongue, as well as heart, liver, spleen, lung and kidney. I see that the heart seems to be beating. I screamed, and ran away from the warehouse. I stumbled, hit my head hard on the floor, descent for a moment, then lost all sense. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself lying in the room. I turned and looked out the window. It was pitch black. I rubbed still faint pain in the head, suddenly heard the door came a burst of goo 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 call. Why are there frogs in the beauty parlor? I was wondering when I saw my body rise uncontrollably, step by step toward the door, and raise my hand. No. I wanted to shout, but nothing came out. I watched in horror as my hand touched the doorknob and pushed down the door opened. The hallway outside was dark except for the faint glow of the emergency lights. I stepped out uncontrollably, a few paces, feeling as if I had stepped in mud, with a purr of poo 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 poo. I tried to roll my eyes down, with the emergency light weak light, wait for me to see, found himself really stepped in the mud. The mire was shallow, barely above my ankles and reeking. There were also some very ugly toads at my feet. They gathered around my feet and called to me goo 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 goo. I felt sick again, but my body kept going. The front seems to be a bottomless black hole, seems to be lurking in what monsters. My hair stood on end. I do not know how long to go forward. I suddenly saw two green light flashing in front, like the devil's eyes. When I got closer, I saw a huge, fat toad squatting in front of me. It was about the height of a grown man, with black and green markings all over it, and huge, bulging eyes, giving off an eerie green glow. When he saw me, his mouth opened wide with excitement. His bright red tongue was ready to go. I noticed that the mud in front of it was littered with human bones, big and small, like broken bones that had just been spat out of meat. Suddenly, a chill came from my limbs. When my body gets closer and closer, it aims at me, whoosh out of the long tongue, once wrapped around me, the tongue of mucus wrapped around me. Then, with a hard pull, my pupils constricted, and I watched myself fly down its throat. I sat up in bed, gasping for air. The moonlight came in through the window. I looked around and found myself lying in bed. So that was a dream. I touched my body and found that my back was soaked with cold sweat. I breathed a sigh of relief and was about to take a shower when I was suddenly too frightened to move. Because I heard the door really sounded gurgling voice. No matter what you hear at night, please don't go out to check. If I just stayed in my room, I'd be okay, right? So I covered my head, shivering curled up in the quilt, a movement did not dare to move. I keep praying I'll make it through the night. Early in the morning, another ring of the doorbell woke me up. I didn't know when I fell asleep again. I rubbed my eyes. It was already light. I opened the door with trepidation, and the secretary stood outside. I followed her out and looked at the corridor as I went along. Its walls were polished and hung with paintings, which looked very elegant, and the floor tiles were so shiny that there wasn't even a speck of dust, let alone mud. Was yesterday really just a dream? Suddenly there was the sound of staff carts. I turned my head and was shocked to see a strange-looking toad-shaped monster walking by with a cart behind me in high heels. "Monster!" I screamed as I grabbed my little secretary. "What do you see?" the secretary asked me, tilting her head. "Monster. It's a monster. Don't you see?" I grabbed her by the collar and shouted. "Is it a monster like that?" She pointed behind me. I looked back in horror. A toad-shaped monster was standing behind me, with a mop in one hand and a bucket in the other, staring at me with huge eyes. I was scared out of my wits, threw off the secretary, stumbled forward to run, as if running forward can be saved the same. Along the way, all the people have become toad-shaped monsters. They have stopped what they are doing, staring at me with big scary eyes. I was so scared that I couldn't stop screaming. The next second, someone grabbed me by the back of my collar, and I was wrestled to the ground. I opened my eyes wide and saw a strange toad in a white coat standing in front of me. I heard him say, "You're sick. Come with me to the infirmary." Then they took me to the infirmary. Two monsters pushed me into a chair and monsters in white coats listened to me with stethoscopes. I tried to fight, but I couldn't move. The monster took out a vial, poured it into his hand, and handed it to me. "Eat it," he said. "You'll be fine." I looked into his palm and saw two white maggots squirming in the palm of his hand. "I don't eat. I don't eat," I shouted at the top of my lungs. But as I opened my mouth, he smacked the maggots into my mouth, and I swallowed them. Classical conditioning. I squatted down and kept retching, trying to throw them up. "Better?" was the voice of the secretary. I looked up and met the secretary's eyes. I looked next to her and saw that the three toad-headed monsters had become Dr. Sun and his two assistants. "You must insist on taking medicine." Dr. Sun handed me the small bottle in his hand and shook it at me. It contained white pills. "You are delusional. You must take your medicine," he said again. When I got out of the infirmary, everything was back to normal. No toad-headed monsters, just staff and guests. Am I really mentally ill? I began to doubt myself. The next few days, I insist on taking medicine. Everything is back to normal. Even more normal than when I first got here. The creepy toad monster no longer appeared, the strange nighttime croaks disappeared, and even the staff were no longer cold, they were polite and kind. The canteen food has become very delicious. Every time I eat, nothing left. Sleep soundly at night, no more nightmares. Maybe I do have a mental illness, I think. Half a month down, I step by step to do beauty project. Nothing strange happened again. One day, when I was finishing my bath, I wiped my face in the mirror and was startled by the person in the mirror. Inside, the person is not as thin as normal people, cheeks sunken into the inside, eyes black, pale lips, like a zombie. I looked incredulously into the mirror, double-checking that the person in the mirror was me. Why am I like this? Didn't I come for a beauty treatment?
Discomfort tone following the facial.
How is it getting uglier?
Afternoon secretary took him to the canteen on the way. I couldn't help afternoon sensation tour.
The mirror caught my
Small
attention.
secretary after listing.
I moved my face closer and wiped the mist off the mirror, and the fine print came out. Ask you. Believe what you see at first. Don't take their medicine. You're not insane. Find a way out, or you'll die here. Strange, who left these words? Was it the last person who lived here? What did he say was the first thing I saw? Is it a toad-headed monster? Why did he say I would die here? A time half a month ago, the scene again poured into my mind. Strange technicians, unresponsive receptionists, strange dreams at night, toad-headed monsters, scary warehouses, etc. I feel a splitting headache. Back in bed, I took out the medicine Dr. Sun had prescribed for me from the bedside table. a small brown bottle with a label that said psychotropic medications, once a day. I used to take it every night before I went to bed, but this time I didn't consciously take it. What happens if I stop taking their medicine? Will I see the toad-headed monster again? With a feeling of unease, I dozed off to sleep. I've been very sleepy since I came to this beauty salon. The next morning, I went to the canteen as usual. Everything seemed to be fine all the way. To the canteen, the chef made a pork chop soup taste very good. As I was leaving the cafeteria after wiping my mouth, I ran into the delivery staff. He was pushing a big cart with some food covered with a white cloth. As we passed the dining car, the white cloth was blown open to reveal its contents. I caught a glimpse of a human head lying in a bucket. Although it was slasher and its eyes had been cut out, I could still identify it as the crazy woman's. For an instant, my blood seemed to coagulate, my legs and feet were weak, and I almost fell to my knees. Is it true that I eat meat every day? Fear seized my mind and I couldn't hold on any longer. I fell to my knees and vomited. Can I help you? The cart operator noticed me. He looked down at me, grim. I was too frightened to stand up. Seeing that I didn't respond, he pushed the cart away again. I almost threw up my intestines. The small print I saw on the mirror yesterday came back to me, find a way out, or you'll die here. I forced myself to calm down. At this moment I finally realized, must escape, otherwise the next to be sent to the cafeteria made into lean meat and ribs is me. After my legs and feet resumed their activity, I regained my composure and headed for the front desk again. I'm going to the dean's office. Where are the keys? I asked calmly. In the courtyard. Same answer. Where on earth can I find the key? Suddenly remembered admission rule number 5. The secretary is your private secretary, responsible for your schedule. If you have any questions, please consult the secretary. Secretary? I hurried to her and asked her point blank, I'm going to see the dean. Where are the keys to her office? She replied politely, the keys are at the front desk. Front desk? The key is in the front desk? No wonder I couldn't find it. She wasn't even going to give me the key. She was just teasing me. I was about to storm back to the front desk. But my secretary reminded me that it was time for a facial. Today's beauty project is leg massage. In order not to violate the rules, I cooperated into the beauty room. I lay on the bed, and soon the technician came with his cart. I glanced at her, horrified, but quickly calmed down. The technician's appearance has changed a lot. Her face is covered with pus, some of which even oozes pus. Hello, I'm here to nurse you. When she opened her mouth, a fat tongue fell out of her mouth and hung over her chin, spitting all over my face. Looking at her strange and ugly appearance, I calmly analyzed in my mind. I didn't take the medicine yesterday, so I think the medicine will lose its effect, so I can gradually see their true face. But I didn't make a fuss. I had to cooperate with her. After all, I didn't know what would happen if I provoked her. But then I realized that I had overestimated my psychological endurance. I couldn't stop screaming as the technician dumped hundreds of ants on my legs. The ants crawled up and down my legs, and eventually gathered in my great veins and sucked my blood greedily. There was a sting on his leg like a bee sting. I couldn't resist kicking them away, only to see the grim face of the technician. She asked me grimly, "What's the matter? Are you sick?" I immediately gave up the struggle, closed my eyes and resigned myself to fate. After I don't know how long, the pain went away. I opened my eyes and saw the technician put all these ants into a transparent bottle. These blood-sucking ants have bulging bellies that are about to burst. And they entered the bottle, the technician with a handshake, immediately into a bottle of blood. The bottle was also immediately a strange light package. I think I know what the red liquid in the storeroom is. Is a woman's blood. As the mechanic wheeled away, I looked down at my legs. There are no scars, but then before the thin circle. No wonder I looked like that in the mirror. If this continues, I will be like the crazy woman, first drained of blood, and then sent to the kitchen for cooking. It seems we must hurry. When I got out, I went to the front desk to get my keys. You have the keys, give them to me, I said, clenching my fists. The receptionist turned into a pustule-faced woman, her big eyes fixed on me, and after a few minutes she finally understood. Then she touched herself, and at last she found a silver key. I was delighted. How could it be so easy? Just as I reached for it, she pulled it back, and her mouth wide open she threw the key down her throat and gulped it down. I didn't think anything of it for a moment and just froze. Then she gave a gurgling laugh of mockery, which, when combined with her excessively ugly face, was very frightening. I came to myself, frightened and angry. What should I do? She ate the key. Does that mean I can't open the dean's office anymore? Never to get out again? I abandoned back to my room. Lying in bed, weak. I couldn't help but shed tears of pain at the thought that I was going to die here like the crazy woman. I should have thought, in fact, from the moment I came in, was doomed to the end. I lay down, and after a while I began to feel drowsy again. Taken away too much blood, I'm more and more easily sleepy, awake time is getting shorter and shorter. Maybe because I didn't take the medicine, I didn't sleep very deeply. I had another dream in a trance. In the dream, I was holding a black knife, killing everywhere, one after another toad strange died in my blade. Finally, I cut open the wall, from the beauty parlor escaped. In the morning, the secretary called me again. I got up gasped, limp, as if I had actually gone to war. I got out of bed and opened the door.
Nazine, discomfort
I
tone
waved my
following the
hand
facial.
wearily.
Afternoon
I don't want
secretary took
breakfast.
to the canteen on the way.
I want to have a
couldn't
rest.
help afternoon things age.
There is only a small secretary still
after
maintain
listing.
normal human appearance. Perhaps because of this, I am not afraid of her, on the contrary, and even some trust her. But she put out her hand to stop me from closing the door, and quietly thrust something into my hand. I looked down and saw a black blade. Just like in my dream. I looked up in shock. The secretary was gone. Holding the knife, I felt as if it were magic, the energy pouring from the handle into my body, my whole body warm, my heart beating with excitement, my hands shaking, my eyes were reflected in the blade, red and bloodshot. Every nerve in my body was screaming, and my brain was going crazy. At this moment, I only have one idea: I want to kill these toads strange. Since you don't let me out, let's kill each other. I banged the door open and walked down the hallway, gripping the blade like a madman ready to kill. It happened that a toad figure with a cart passed me by. I didn't hesitate to swing my arm and cut off her head. She died before she even knew it. When she fell to the ground, she changed into a toad completely. I reopened the nearest beauty salon, where the toad monster was treating a guest. Without thinking, I struck again, and the toad's blood spurted all over the back wall. Maybe it was the noise that caught the toad's attention. When I left the room, all the toads were gathered in the hallway. They were all toad-headed and wide-eyed, staring at me with anger and horror. But I wasn't afraid. I raised the blade and slashed at them with the swiftness of a man who was born to fight. 1, 2, 3, howling in the hallways, the toads fleeing. But I move faster, I fly up, cut their throats, cut off their feet, split their bodies. The bodies were lying on the ground, and the smell of blood filled the whole beauty parlor. Finally, I found the front desk and plunged the blade into its skull. Then I disemboweled it, deadpan, and found the silver key I wanted. I took the key out, wiped the blood off it, and went down the hall. "Dean, I'm here." I put the key in the lock, turned it, and the door opened with a click. Push open the door, and did not see the so-called Dean. There was only one table in it, and a beautiful purple flower grew strangely above it. In the center of the flower, a golden bead was floating, emitting a faint light. My gut tells me that the bead must have some mysterious connection to the beauty salon. So I picked up the knife, cut it in half with my hand. In an instant, the beads fell, hit the ground into a raging fire. Purple flowers also instantly withered. Immediately, the foot began to shake, the wall collapsed, the black blade in my hand turned into a plume of black smoke. That should be the end of it? But the next second, my body came from the pain. I raised my hand, panicked to find his hands are burning. The fire devoured my skin, and to my horror, my human skin was burned away, exposing the ugly toad skin inside. How can this be? How can I become a toad? No, I squatted down in pain, watching my hands burn, the fire still rising up my arms. Why is that? Why am I not saved, but reduced to ashes? I cried out in despair, my wailing drowned out by the sound of collapsing walls. As my mind drifted away, a bright light appeared over my head. I try to open my eyes, but see the secretary suspended above. Behind her, I do not know why, more than a pair of white wings, exudes a golden light. You've paid for your wickedness at last, she said coldly. Go away, black toad. What is she talking about? Vice? Cost? As I was dying, I finally remembered. I am the director of this beauty salon. I was a black-orbited toad, and it took me hundreds of years to become human. I tasted the beauty of the world every day in the shape of a human being to enjoy the world of life. But to maintain the appearance of human beings need to spend a lot of energy, and women's blood can not only help me to grow energy, but also help maintain a beautiful appearance. To this end, I opened this beauty salon. I caught some talented toads and gave them a breath of life so that they could work like human beings during the day, but due to my limited spiritual practice, I could only transform them into half-human, half-toad monsters. In order to deceive the human eye, each come here to have a facial customers will take my system of special pills. This can give them the illusion that this is a normal beauty salon. Then I collect their blood little by doing beauty treatments until they become nothing more than skin and bones, and when they have lost their main value, I send them to the kitchen and make them into food, squeeze the last bit of value out of it. Am I good at increasing utilization? But my wickedness was finally discovered by the angels. As angels, they can't kill. So she could only defeat me, but she couldn't kill me, so after she subdued me, she erased my memory, let me go into her beauty salon as a human, and then she became a little secretary, lead me step by step to kill myself. I have just been split into 2-inch beads is my yuan dan, it is a broken, I will undoubtedly die. Remembering my misdeeds, a tear of guilt fell from the corner of my eye. Eventually, as my consciousness dissipated, my body, and the beauty salon, burned to the ground.